Welcome to the Orykl Podcast, where we ask the big question, hey universe, what's going on? I'm your host, Huenu Solsona, and today we are exploring another fascinating spiritual journey. Let's get started. Hello, everybody. It's Huenu Solsona here with the Orykl Podcast, hey universe, what's going on? And today we have Steven Noack joining us, who had two incredible experiences, an NDE when he was 4 years old, and then a very intense experience similar to an NDE when he was 33. And it's just fascinating to hear it. So, Steven, thank you so much for being here and welcome.
Thanks for having me. Happy to be here.
Great. So, you know what, Steven, I'm just going to sort of hand over the mic to you. Would love to hear what all happened when you were 4, when you were 33. So please go ahead and share your story.
Sure. Thank you. Well, I had a near-death experience at the age of 4, so I'll start there. I was on a big wheel, which is a small plastic tricycle, 4 years old. I was at the neighbor's house, which is across the street from mine. And my brother was standing on the other side of the road, and he called over to me, "Hey, we're going to the mall." Immediately as a child, I thought, well, we're going to get toys. Okay. So I just sped off in between two parked cars. And the next thing I knew is I collided with a car that was coming down the road, oncoming traffic. And the car had completely run me over, continued going until probably about 25, 30 feet down the road, because she was drinking and she didn't really know she hit a 4-year-old. So she completely ran me over. My big wheel had got wedged underneath the tire. That's what saved me. But what I remember is a blur. And then witnessing myself, all of a sudden I was hovering above myself and I could see myself, and my eyes rolled into the back of my head. And the funny thing was, I had no clothes when I was looking at myself. It's like I was naked, and I see my eyes roll in the back of my head. And the next thing I know is the scene fades to black, like the end of a movie. And then it kind of opens up again. And I'm sitting with this being, and I'm actually leaning on them, kind of. And I have my head on them. My head's kind of facing a down position. So I start to come to. I open my eyes, and the first thing I noticed was long, silver, white hair. And it's almost touching the ground. And then I see a robe of the same color, but a little darker. And again, I'm leaning like this. I open my eyes. These are the first couple things I notice. I don't really see much beyond that. And when I go to turn, because I'm thinking to myself, who is this? What's happening? And I'm thinking it's a person. So when I turn to look at this person, it's a being of light that's hooded in like this robe, and they have no face. They only have light where their face should be. Wow. So I turn, I'm looking at this being for, I'm not sure the amount of time, but I asked them what happened, and they said, "Steven, put your head down. Everything's going to be all right." So as I put my head down on this being, I'm still looking at their face, still kind of having thoughts come up, like just errant thoughts, like I spoke, but we didn't really move our mouths, and like things like that.
Were you scared?
Kind of grasp. I wouldn't say scared. I would say confused. It felt like a dream, but I was aware.
Yes.
And I couldn't really place my thoughts anywhere, if that makes sense. Any ground, so to speak. So I asked the being, and they say, "Put your head down." And I do, and I'm looking at this being's face. I'm still staring at their face, and it's all light, just white light where their face should be, no face. And I'm slowly feeling myself getting pulled into this light, into this face. And the further and further I kind of feel myself going, almost like stretched out in a way, eventually I start to see this picture, and it's like meadows and flowers, and there's people far off in the distance. And the flowers, still colors I've never seen today, still flowers I've never seen today, and it's much more crisp and vibrant and alive. And I noticed the colors were their own being. They were kind of floating through the air and through the flowers, as opposed to being in you know, they were part of them, but they were individual beings, and I was aware of that, some sort of waveform, if I could describe it better now. So the colors are going through the flowers. I could see there's meadow and meadow upon meadow, and it's beautiful. And I notice a path, and at the end of this path, I see people, and I'm trying to really focus on them, and they seem far away, but they're close. And that's something I still can't explain as I'm looking at things. It's far away, but it's next to me. Mm-hmm. So I notice these two figures, and I'm focusing on them, and I see that it's a little girl and it's an elderly man, and they're playing, and they're kind of off in the distance on the horizon, and they're playing, and I hear the little girl laugh, and the laugh just floats through the air and then touches me right in the chest. And then that's when I got like a download that everything was one, that everything came from this place, and everything will circuit back to it eventually at some point, when it's done having its experience. So that instant feeling of love, of just everything being dropped inside of me in a way. I knew there was no pain there. I knew there was no suffering, no hate, no division. And I wanted to stay there because, it was so vibrant and beautiful. Yeah. And they wouldn't let me. So they said, Steven, it's not your time. And then the scene I was looking at, it was like someone just pulled it away. And the background changes into almost a night sky, if you will. And it's not quite dark, but there's no stars. So it's like a night sky, but not black. And I noticed the lines going up and down. I'm just kind of, at 4, I'm just watching this, and this is most of what's happening. I'm just, okay. No idea what anything means, and won't for a while. Yeah. So I'm being transported to this other place that has lines going up and down. And the being says to me, this is the quantum field. You build your reality using this field through your thoughts and emotions. Wow. And then the next thing I know is I'm looking down on like a wagon wheel, and in the center there was like this beam of light, and it was pure, and I understood it was love. And they explained to me, this is how you come into the world, and then you spend your energy to have an experience on a material and spiritual level. And they showed these cords kind of coming out from my heart in this beam of energy that I was, kind of like where the heart would be, going out into the screen or the outer rim of this wheel, and then coming back to me. And it was kind of cycling through me. And they explained, this is the energy that you've spent, and it's now held in the field, and it's circulating back through you to give you a perception of reality. So they're explaining you're an energy, being human. So I'm looking kind of at this outer edge, or this screen. It was almost like having a movie screen wrapped all the way around you. And there's little like boxes, like little TV sets almost. And I couldn't quite make out what was in the boxes. And it wasn't like the whole screen was filled. There were some here, some there, then spaces, and then some here, some here. So I'm looking, and I could see it's kind of like people or things, like as if you were watching a memory or something. I didn't realize at the time, but so I look at that, and the next thing that kind of starts to happen is that fades away. And then I notice something kind of in the distance, and then the being says, this is your divine blueprint. All human beings have one. When it's time for you to restore yourself, then you need to reconnect to this blueprint. In other words, you need to believe you are this, and stop believing you are the identities the world's giving you. And this will help you anchor in your thought to that divine energy that you are. Wow. So when they showed it to me, it looked like a credit card almost, but it was missing a corner, and there were circuits on it like a motherboard of a computer. Yeah. So attach my thought here, this is what's going to recircuit me and rewire me back out of the system that I'm going to be participating in, apparently. So that kind of fades away, and they were sure to let me know, subscribe to this and believe you're this, rather than believing what the world is telling you and the things you're going to experience.
Yeah.
So the next thing I see is like this triangle that's kind of coming into focus. And I see that it's got lines, and there's 3 dots on each tip. And they tell me this is the Trinity, Heavenly Father, Divine Mother, and it's a circuit. When you bring them together, they'll have a sun or a singularity. What we would kind of know is a black hole, but it's not really a good term. But they explained to me that make the 2 one, and they'll have a sun. And then I instantly got the image of having a sun in my center. And they said this is also a quantum generator. And none of this stuff is hitting any type of, I'm just watching and listening.
No, you're 4.
Yeah.
But I
So,
suppose were you listening and grasping this with the mind of a 4-year-old, or do you think you understood it at a soul level?
it was like a download on a soul level, and it was going to be unpacked later, for sure, which I had no idea, So they tell me this is the Trinity, make Father and Mother one, and they'll have a son. And they'll circulate, kind of start spinning. And they were showing me these motions, how one comes down, one comes up. And then they talked about a little bit about this is the conscious and this is the subconscious. And you're making them one. And this is going to complete a circuit and keep you from separating, keep you joined more with your divinity. So it's some basic things. As far as, well, what I consider basic things now, as far as just showing me, okay, the Trinity, this medicine wheel that gave me the formula of we're spending our energy and we can call it back. And that was something they talked about as well. Ascension, the evolution of humanity, how we're multidimensional beings, but we have the authority to claim all of our energy back into the moment of now.
Right.
And they talked a little bit about how we're in an alternating current and we want to rewire ourselves into a direct current. So they just gave me like those little bits and pieces, and then later it would be expanded upon. So after talking about the Trinity, that kind of fades. And then the next thing I know is I'm waking up with toys. And coming out, I knew something very strange had happened, but I couldn't place my finger on what. It was almost like trying to remember what you ate 3 weeks ago on a Wednesday for lunch. You know you ate lunch, but you're not sure what you ate. So I come out, I'm a little bit different, sensitive, things like that. I didn't realize until later and looking at myself. So about 35 years passed, and I'm figuring at this time, all of this is behind me. This is a memory of something that happened to me. And it's something that I didn't remember until I was like 11, 12. And it was a small confirmation for me. I'm like, yeah, I'm not crazy. Something did happen. And I tried to tell like 1 or 2 people, and I realized very quickly that wasn't a smart idea. Just keep it to myself. Many years pass, and eventually I'm at a normal job. I'm a store manager at a video game store. And then that's when the beings returned. And how they returned was I was having surgery following this accident where I flipped a car over 5 times at 75 miles an hour. And at that moment, something else was happening. I was leaving my body. The car is rolling. My head's hitting the window. My elbow's hitting the window. My face hits the dashboard. And so naturally flipping that fast, you're getting a jarring experience. And 3 people flew out of the car because they didn't have seatbelts as the car was rolling. Luckily, everyone survived with minor injuries. They landed on someone's front lawn. So just following that experience, I'm having surgery for my elbow that I fractured in that experience. And as I'm getting ready to kind of go in and have surgery. I hadn't had medication yet. I'm getting very panicky. I was already kind of nervous. I didn't want to do it. And I'm sitting there. I literally had just gotten there and I was like, yeah, I'm going to leave because I had just gotten changed and everything, sat down on the bed. And as I sat up, a moment from getting up, I hear this voice and it says, Steven, put your head down. Everything's going to be all right. And I'm like, oh my God, that's the being that I met at 4. And as soon as I made that distinction, it was like a dam broke in my head or something, because here come all these visions, all these emotions. I'm crying, I'm laughing, and in a span of like 5 minutes, cry, laugh, this, that. And it was like someone was playing a reel through me, which I would experience kind of later when I had this I am experience. So this being, I recognize that's the being I spoke to. Same voice, same thing they said. All these visions start, these emotions. And then an energy, literally, I'm sitting up at this point, ready to leave. And then an energy sits me down and it goes all the way around my body. And it was like the most beautiful, perfect, warmest love I've ever felt. And it was the feeling I felt when I was 4 in that place. And I didn't realize that until later, but we can make that one with us now. So that took some work, but I wake up out of my my surgery and I'm not the same after that. I'm starting to see and sense energies around me. It started with like silhouettes. They were just crossing my vision. First, I noticed it's in the peripheral, and then I noticed them start to be more full and more straight in front of me, and they're just moving back and forth, moving back and forth. I was terrified. I thought I was haunted. I went to the doctor's office and I yelled at the guy. I was yelling at him, "What'd you do to me?" And so that was my moment where I was kind of losing it. So I noticed some of these silhouettes are smoky, some are light, some are dark. And I realized later that was based on the energy they were made out of. Now, thinking I'm haunted, I'm sort of losing my mind. I'm starting to speak to these energies. I'm like, leave, you don't belong here, et cetera, et cetera. Now they start speaking back. They start telling me, and very few nice voices. Most of them were nasty. They started telling me what a no good person I was. I'm never going to be anything in my life. And all these things for about a week or two. And I didn't sleep for a few days as I'm trying to shut this off. So I'm going to bed. And after a while, that's when it would really start. When I would try to go to bed and I would have spasms on the side of my head. There's a muscle on the side of your head, spasm. And that's how I knew that, okay, here we go. It's starting again and I can't shut it off. Yeah. So that was rough. And then I realized just the download, the instant knowing, wait a minute, this is not happening to me. This is happening through me. So I'm the one in control. I need to tune my divine instrument, because what I was witnessing were my quantum projections that I created to function in certain environments, like survival environments, where we want to keep ourselves safe and kind of shielded. And I recognized that through the speak that they were giving me, that it was my younger self and how I talked to myself growing up in those environments of, childhood trauma and things. So as I started to unravel that, I realized that I needed to tune my thoughts to match my emotions to create the embodiment, the desired embodiment I want. So I'm starting to figure out pieces by pieces. I'm still back at work at the game store as a store manager, and I'm starting to have just different supernatural experiences where I'm seeing these rainbow energies, almost shaped like an angel, but you couldn't. I don't want to say, hey, that's an angel like we describe it. I'm seeing those energies. I'm working, and all of a sudden I'm laughing out of nowhere. I'm crying out of nowhere. And now I'm starting to pick up people's thoughts. And I'm starting to notice that. And it took me probably a couple of weeks to figure out that that's what was happening. And I would test that. I would say, hey, do you want a bag with that? But I would say it in my mind and see what they would answer. And then I would ask them out loud and see if it matched. So I was thinking of these ways to try to make myself not feel crazy as I was trying to run a business here. So thoughts graduate to feeling people's hunger. They would walk in and I would get gut-wrenchingly hungry. And after a while, I dismissed it. But this was right after lunch, right after feeling entirely full.
Wow.
After a while, I asked a couple people, I said, "Hey, are you hungry?" And a couple people just stopped dead in their tracks, turned around and walked out. And a few others said, "Yeah, I am kind of hungry."
Yeah.
And I was like, whoa, so there's something there.
Yeah.
Then one day, I had to eventually leave that job, by the way, because it was too invasive on my psyche with working with the public. Eventually, I went to help seniors for a while and now have my own practice healing. So before that happened, before I left my job, searching just for peace in my mind, before I left my job, I had this woman that had fallen outside of my store. And she was elderly. She was in a lot of pain. She had hit the cement. She was moaning. I was the first one out there because I saw her right outside my store. Another person came out and I said, go call the ambulance. She needs somebody to come and get her. So they went, and I put my hand on her back for some reason as I'm waiting for them to get there. And she turns her head and looks at me, and I'll never forget this. She goes, "I'm all warm and I have no pain." And I freaked me out. So I went back to work and I was thinking about it. And it was just this string of events that was starting to come together to say, okay, there's something happening to me. There's something going on. And then that was me leaving my job. I started to have experiences where I would see a ball of light in my room. I'd wake up in the middle of the night, there's a ball of light in my room, and I would go through the motions of there's no lamp there, there's no reflection, it's not a headlight. I would try to make myself not feel crazy.
Yeah.
So eventually realizing, okay, this light was real. This turned into me sitting outside, getting lifted out of my body. And when that happened, it felt like as I was being pulled into that being's face, it was just kind of like whoosh. Yeah. And in that moment, all the pain, and now that's another part of the story, was all the pain I had from the accidents, from getting run over, from playing sports, from crashing motorcycles. I was in a lot of pain at that time, taking pain medication just to go to work. I was depressed. I was addicted. As soon as I got lifted out of my body, all of it was gone. It just melted away. I didn't feel any pain. And then they started speaking to me about me being a biological machine and operating a lot like a computer, and that I would download these programs and then emulate them. And that I also had a quantum generator that would generate energy in my chest based on the information I would feed it. And that would kind of decide my placement. It would move me this way or that way. They talked a bit about lower negative entities, harvesting that quantum energy, things like that. And then as I came back down, I realized, okay, I just had no pain. I can recreate that now. I can get back there. And it took me a while to get back there. Another
because I guess that's another whole talk altogether. But in a nutshell, how did you get there?
They were showing me how to rewire myself from survival into a grounded direct current. And what they're explaining to me is most of the time you're in an alternating current where you're getting a bit pushed and pulled through your emotions. Now that's based on the cellular memory you're still holding of the trauma, of the experiences. Very easy to push and pull you from the environment. They were showing me how to make the conscious and subconscious one, how to bring heaven and earth, thought and breath, because the breath is the subconscious, together to really create the circuit that would ground me. Right. And then it's almost like, to the viewers, it's almost like throwing a fabric softener sheet in the dryer when you don't want your clothes to stick together. So when I'm in this grounded state, this would start to discharge all these other lower energies. So it was really how I was wired.
Wow.
And they were teaching me how to process and store the data that was incoming, like inputs and outputs, because I didn't want to download too many programs that were poor. They were showing me how to store everything into my heart, how to take all these signals, fear, stress, anxiety, worry, and really store them through the heart before they were getting stored in my body. And this started to correct my body, bring it back to homeostasis.
Wow.
They explained you're already a divine instrument. You're just out of tune. You're kind of tuned into distortion. And that's where those other energies came in that I thought were haunting me.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
this is happening periodically, like these different events, a couple weeks apart, days apart, months apart, over a period of time. And there's one day I'm driving home and I'm really beating myself up for not being good enough and all these things. And I'm at that time, I'm experiencing that interference. So I'm trying to shut that out. But I hear this voice and it's off to my right. And it starts telling me how beautiful I am, all the people that love me and all the good things I did. And I'm like, wow, that's different. And it really sounded different. It was very solid, but it was soft and gentle. So I asked this voice, who are you? And they say, I am. And I think it's important to note I had no religious context at this point. I was never brought to church. I didn't even have a knowing of God. You know, that was my experience to that point. My parents never brought me to church. So never heard this expression. So the voice says, I am. And I say, yeah, I am who? And then they say, I am. And then I'm escalating it. I'm saying, yeah, I am who? I heard you the first time. So the third time, I am. And it was like someone had hit me in the gut with this energy that pushed every single memory and every single feeling I had up at the same time, but separately. And it was like you hit rewind on an old tape reel, and it was like memories, 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 feelings, feelings, feelings. And I'm feeling them separately, but at the same time. And instantly I just lost it. I started crying, pulled over. Now, crying without thinking, mind you. It was like a reflex. On that third I am, boom, it just all came up. And I pulled the car over and it was the hardest I ever cried in my life. And after that, I was like, I felt clear and I felt different. And that's when I started to really kind of look into, okay, there's something going on. I'm starting to believe this as it's being strung together. Because I was tough. I was stubborn.
Yeah, you were.
So now start these other beings that show up in my room. I'm just sitting there eating a bowl of Cheerios. And all of a sudden it was like the whole atmosphere changed of the room and I could feel it, the kind of pressure wave on me. And these beings start speaking from the corner of my room, and they tell me they're here to help me with my evolution and ascension, and start explaining a lot of the things that I mentioned earlier, but the kind of how-tos, how to use the Trinity that I saw, what the divine blueprint meant. And so they're here to kind of teaching me all the stuff that I saw. I had no idea what it meant. I know I saw it. Now they're teaching me, like 35 years later. So I ask them, who are you? The very first meeting was me saying, go away. So I'm eating Cheerios, and they come in and they start speaking to me about the divine council, about how I'm here to help the planet evolve. And I'm like, yeah, okay, whatever. I'm like eating my Cheerios. I'm like, just go away. Because this was also the point where I was experiencing a lot, and it was a lot.
Yeah.
So I tell them to go away, and they left. And I looked up some of the things they had told me: Galactic Federation, Arcturians, Divine Council of Nine. And here it is. And I'm finding it. I'm like, so maybe that was something, real. Then start the dreams where I'm on this ship, and it's white and it's got smooth kind of rounded surfaces. And each dream, which would be spaced days or weeks apart, I'd be in a different part of the ship. And I would wake up covered in sweat. My body was just so bed was just soaked. So quite a few of those dreams, those beings come back.
What do you think you were doing there
whether I was acclimating or getting reconnected to my
Mm.
circuits.
Okay.
I believe that's what was, as well as learning. They were teaching me things,
Mm.
but I believe there were things to help me remember, that I would remember at this point, as well as other things about human evolution, singularity, how to make the two parts of ourselves one, and things like that. And it was really about purification, about surrendering that lower self and linking up, becoming the programmer, reprogramming myself, my subconscious mind, to really break out of that matrix. And that's what it's about, getting out of this matrix that we're pushed and pulled through our identities. So a big key part to this was identity, and not to trade that away to the world. To remember, if I am the energy of love and I know this, then I'm already free. So it's a matter of completing these signals. So a lot of it was rewiring, teaching me how to heal others. What's that?
Knowing thyself, truly.
Yeah, knowing yourself without compromise. But when I work with clients, I tell them, work with the sensation of knowing. It's the same sensation as when you think about, do I know how to tie my shoes?
Right.
Do I know how to make a bowl of cereal? Think about what that feels like when you get the answer of, yeah, I do. And then emulate that. And so there were different frequencies.
That's a beautiful tip. That's a great
Mm-hmm.
tip. I'm going to use that.
They were teaching me how to use energies, how to broadcast them as a transmitter to other people to help them heal. So when I work with a client today, I'll think of a moment when I was at pure freedom, pure love, pure joy, and then that's broadcast to them through the circuit that they willingly connect to, that they open up to.
Wow.
So really, I tell clients, you don't even need to believe in anything particular. Work with the sensation of belief itself, and then see what you can apply that to. Try to apply it to your identity. Try to apply it to other things.
Yeah.
So
sure. Okay, you were saying, so these people, these beings are there, and go on.
Yeah. These beings would visit me periodically. I would never see them, and I think that's probably because I'd be too disturbed. Then they began to show up in like healing sessions. So slowly I learned that, okay, I have some kind of healing gift here. And people would just be dropped into my space, and I thought I could help them, and I would try and it would work out, and they would have visions of either angels, Jesus, or other things. And I'm like, as strange as that was, I'm like, okay, that's for you. And I wasn't too much vested in what people were seeing to be real or not real. I'm just like, okay, I'm glad you got healed. I'm glad you feel better. Things like that. And then slowly that graduated into me making it a business. Not really a business, I would say my life, dedicating myself. Slowly they would show up in these healing sessions, different races of aliens. I would see ones that look like praying mantises, ones that looked like lion beings. And at first I had never seen them. So I'm like, is this a problem? Because I would have people that would come to me with negative entities to get removed and things like that. So I thought, okay, could this be related? Then slowly I learned that, hey, they were part of this one team that was helping Earth kind of evolve. And also that we were in this.
Go on, Yana.
I was just going to say, they were teaching me that I was the energy playing the character, that I was in a quantum theater, that I was not here by punishment, that we were having and sharing acts together like we would in a theater, and that it wasn't that serious. And I came to understand it like a quantum video game. Whatever I feed myself, as they explained to me in terms of frequency, higher, lower, I had a crystal here, a frequency oscillator, like a Tesla coil going down to my heart. And whatever I would feed in terms of information, truth, it would create embodiment for me. So it would create this character or that character. So slowly in time, I was kind of learning that I was the energy behind the thought. And I would have these memories of standing at a console, programming timelines and things like that. So they would explain timelines, and they would explain, if you want to be in your highest timeline, you embody the energy of love. If you're not embodying love, your trajectory for your quantum leap is going to be off, and you're going to miss that space. So they're explaining other things like that, movement through the field, through my thoughts and emotions. And we see that with how time is malleable. If
Mm-hmm.
I'm in some place I don't want to be, time's going by slow. If I'm having fun, it's going by fast.
Mm.
So I started to understand some of those dynamics.
Yeah. So I love it. I love the way you're explaining it, because these are concepts I think I certainly have heard and many people have heard, but it's got a slightly different quality the way you explain it, which I think makes it a little bit easier for people to understand. It's like marrying also, logic and science, even in a way, and our mind with these spiritual concepts, right? Um,
Mhm.
and it sounds like you have been visited or have contact with many different races. Um, can you list them, like, more or less? Because I know about this, Orykl is a platform for channelers, so who connect with many of the beings that you just mentioned. So can you
Yeah,
list
I would.
that contact with?
Some are mantid, some are Arcturian, some are Lyran. Played. I knew I came from Orion,
Uh-huh.
somewhere in the belt of Orion.
Okay.
Um,
Yeah.
but there's so many races, as well
Yeah.
as negative ETs that want to exploit our energy and have an
Mm,
experience in this
mm,
material reality. So they're what we call the neural hijacking. So they're
mm,
looking to hijack our neural space through the unprocessed cellular memory. So
mm.
everything's controlled through that energy I'm holding in my
Right.
space in
But
a
it's still
negative way.
you, right?
Now,
It's still you, whether it's creating the good or the bad. It's still what you put out is what you're going to receive. Because I think a lot of that can be
exactly.
scary
It's
for
going to
people,
circuit.
right? When
Yeah.
when you say to people, you can channel yourself, say, people get a bit scared, like they go, well, I don't want to be invaded by a negative energy. And it's still you. I don't know how you would explain it, but either inviting that energy or it's your
I mean,
projection that comes back to you. Because if you are in a loving state and in a positive frame of mind and you are feeling that way, you can't attract that kind of energy. Am I right?
right. It really depends on the
Personally,
state.
when I meditate and I try and connect, and I'm not saying this for other people, but like I generally don't protect myself. I could for sure, and I think people should 100%. But I'm just saying that for me, because I just know that I'm in a state that nothing that is below that could come into the space. And so I feel safe. Although sometimes if I hear a noise, for example, outside, and I think, oh, what's that? Then I might get a little bit scared. And then I might go, you know what, just in case, I'm going to protect myself. You know what I mean? And I do, and I protect myself in, there's many different ways of doing it. But yeah, how would you say that that's accurate?
Yeah, I would say my protection is in my identity. As soon as I start to question my identity, then I have a problem. Then I'm no
Mm,
longer protected because I'm opening a space where I'm seeking approval, validation, these other things.
yes.
So it's through my divine blueprint, it's through the knowing of my identity. If I
Yeah.
have a son here, and I know I do, then I'm protected. Everything has to go through the energy of love to get to me first,
Mm,
even my own physical pain. And all these signals, they're signals from the brain to the body. I rewire them through the heart. That's how I got from a space of needing pain medication just to function to nothing and relying on my mind and my heart, was rewiring all the signals through the heart space first before you speak to my body, because I'm that stubborn. You're not going to talk to my body until you speak to my heart.
wow.
And that's where you can teach me intuitively. And that's what we're missing, is how we're wired. We're wired in for that one space. But yeah, we're protected through our identity.
Yeah.
If I'm not sure I'm protected, then I'm not going to be protected. But
Mm,
it's not to say you won't get a lesson to help you advance.
mm,
In essence, yes, if everything came from this one place, it's all one, and it will all circuit back to
yeah.
eventually.
Okay. And how's your life changed? I mean, when did this happen? How many years ago? Where are you today?
Yeah, this was about probably 15, almost like 14 years ago. And I went on that journey of self-exploration, of shutting out the world,
Mm,
really disciplining myself of what I attached my energy to, because I was realizing through the events I had witnessed, like that medicine wheel, where I was attaching energy and it was anchoring somewhere and it was being stored, that I needed to watch, be mindful of where I put my energy. So it changed me because, I used to be a pain-filled, trauma-filled addict that didn't want to be here anymore, who was suicidal, riddled with pain and angry at the world, judgmental and angry and miserable. Um, so if we were to ask the people, like I visited a friend from high school not too long ago, night and day. I was that negative person, and I still have the skeptical mind because of the things I went through. To be honest with you, I had my experience at 4, and so much darkness and pain after. I figured if there was a God, he doesn't like me. So that was the point I was at when they came. And how it changed me was it filled me with such an overflowing love and faith that it pours out onto other people. And it's really like I started to understand that they were me, and how I treated these people when I was at senior care, when I was literally wiping the butt when I was working with seniors of an elderly person. I realized I was wiping the butt of my creator, and that all these were the butts of creator. And I was like, oh my God. So how I treated them, even people I interacted with that had no knowledge of God or anything, that would indicate the relationship between myself and my creator. It had nothing to do with me and this character. These were just characters that were coming in and out.
Yeah.
So it became really that oneness. And I stopped, a lot of the habits and the patterns and the unhealthy things that I was doing, and I was going into nature. And that's really where I went back to heal, because I spent a lot of time there as a child, probably mitigating some of the frequencies I was absorbing in a toxic family environment. And I didn't realize how much. So when it was time, I went back there to heal, to begin rewiring myself, for a different embodiment, to remember who I was as divinity, playing this character, not really Steve. So it changed me from night and day to somebody who can love everybody, from somebody who didn't love anybody.
Oh, I've got goosebumps. I love it. What a story. It's so inspiring, so beautiful. And I wish everybody didn't have to go through the entire experience, because it sounds like it was a lot of suffering, but it's nice that to know that this is like this, right? That this is how life works, that this is how we create our reality, how it's like you say, who we are is, what we experience. So, that's really my purpose actually here on earth, is to assist people and myself, because it's, to realize that and to live from that place. And we're all on a journey. I'm on a similar journey, and I find that the more I go into my heart and become that love, the more I see it all around me.
The more we see that singularity. And that's the whole point, is I don't want to be bound by shame, guilt, or regret in the past. I don't want to be fearful, worry, or anxious of the future, because then my signal's flat. I want it all in the moment of now. And that's kind of how they were teaching me. And then I realized along some point that I was my future self guiding my past self in the present moment, that I was no longer subject to any of these bondages unless I wanted to be.
Yeah. Well, it's been a long one, but a really great one. So thank you so much. Is there any parting words that you'd like to leave us with? And, you're obviously welcome to share as well your services.
Sure. Yeah, I would say anybody struggling with pain, the best thing you could do is start speaking to your pain directly. Start speaking to your body. Treat it like it's a burglar coming into your house. Thank you. You taught me how to lock the door. You taught me how to lock the window, but you're not welcome here. And really start to separate your identity from it. Speaking directly to the pain can really move that pain. And I have a lot of clients who talk about that. And just start realizing how short and how beautiful that this experience is, and try to fill it with things you want to do. Don't wait to go do something. Go do all these things that are calling to you now, because it's going to be much more rewarding. And then not take it so seriously, because it's really not that serious. You're an eternal being playing a character for a little while. Don't worry so much about what other opinions tell you who you should be. You decide who your identity is. As long as that's set in love, that's a great thing. And yeah, as far as reaching me, you can reach me at trinityquantumhealth.com. I do work with people like all over the world. And that's one of the greatest parts about this job is I get to meet people in, China, Europe, literally, all these different countries, Norway and Sweden, that I would never, ever visit or have done.
Yeah. Okay.
So.
I love it. Steven, it's been such a pleasure. Thank you so much for this amazing story. And I'm sure I'll be talking to you again because it was beautiful. Thank you.
Sounds good. Thank you so much.